So when you say your work has been devalued, we talked earlier about like residuals. So how does that work with streaming? Do you get residuals?
So we should, but we don't. So essentially, there is some forms of residuals that still exist, but they're all totally degraded. And a lot of extremely successful episodes of TV, think of like whatever the number one is on Netflix. A lot of the times, those writers who wrote that episode, they are not getting residuals, and that used to really be our backbone for having any kind of stable middle class lifestyle. And so once we lost those, it really went away, kind of becoming a gig economy.
I was going to ask you about that. So do you feel like it is a gig economy at this point for writing, and how can that be combated?
I think it definitely has become that, and for some it's really, I mean, people have to work a second job, even if they're a credited writer in the WGA, which is so much worse than it was in the preceding years. And in terms of how it can be fixed, it's all of the core proposals that are in our negotiations right now. It's getting residuals for streaming. So, for every 10 million people that watch an episode on Netflix, we can get a little bit of a profit share of that. It's those sorts of changes. And it's also just having a minimum room size so that there's enough writers working to create, a fair amount of sort of proportional episodes to how many writers are in the room. So those sorts of changes can make things at least stable and go back to what it was, which is really all we want. We're not asking for huge shares of profits. We just want sort of a share basically amounting to 2% of all the profits they make on the shows that we write. So
cool. And then when it comes to having a more stable writing job, do you think that will actually help the consumer as well if writers have more stable jobs where your writer isn't having to worry about a second job, I guess? Do you think it can help the consumer?
That's a great question. I think it does, if only because it means the writer can stay committed to that show that they're working on. And also part of our proposals are giving writers more time and more resources to write the shows that people love. So the more stable a writer can be and the more time they have, if they have the correct amount of sort of manpower to write the show, it'll be a better story. And that's really all we want, and that's definitely what the consumer wants, I think. So our hope is, these changes will help. And just to give an example, a lot of the times you'll have a short room, it's called a mini room, and you'll get maybe half of the season written or most of the season written, but then all the writers are let go, and it's just the showrunner left to literally rewrite and produce the entire season by themselves. So if you can imagine being that showrunner, that's a horrible place to be. It's horrible for the writers who get let go. And the product, the story isn't going to be as good because it's one person trying to fix everything. So we're trying to fix problems like that.
That makes sense. And I think that can really do a lot to improve the quality of shows as well. And like yesterday, you said something kind of like in half jest, but you said, not all TV is art, but it can be. Do you think that this is like a step towards bringing making TV a higher art form again?
I hope so. I mean, I think if we can bring stability to the writers who are working on these shows, then they are going to take the work that much more seriously. They're going to want to put in the time, and they're going to just be more, they're going to have more pride about it. So I definitely think if our proposals can be met even halfway, you will be getting better TV and maybe some more elevated work too. So I definitely hope so.
How is AI and like ChatGPT and these other technologies, how are they affecting these negotiations right now?
That's a great question, and it is so early days still on AI, generative AI. Essentially, well, maybe some context. In 2007, 2008, part of the reason that strike happened, the writers went on strike then, is because we wanted to protect ourselves to get a share of internet media. So it was so early in streaming and what TV was going on the internet, we didn't know exactly what it was going to be, but we said, hey, we just need to protect our copyright, we need to protect our profit sharing, and that's how we feel about AI. We think that it can be a threat to us, and that, for example, if Law and Order, you write for Law and Order, if they start replacing writers and running the procedural formula through AI, writers who wrote previous episodes are not going to get a share of whatever is produced riffing off of them in AI. So we want it to be a tool for writers, and writers are using it as a tool right now, but we just don't want it to basically impinge on the rights to what we have written. So we're trying to get the studios to come and agree with that, but and it's very indicative. They're basically saying, we don't even want to talk about that. And it's like, oh, well, why not? Because they know it's important. So that's where we're at.
Yeah. And so what is a real life writer bring to the storytelling process that AI cannot?
Oh man. a heart and a soul, I hope, is my first answer. I mean, it's ultimately about finding creativity. And AI, what it can do is learn and riff off of things that have been written. In my opinion, that's not truly original. It's finding just reworkings of what already has been. And you could say, yes, some writing is reworking stories that we're familiar with, but it's always finding that original new human element. And I just don't think AI can do that. Maybe it can one day, but not right now, and we want to keep human writers working.
Yeah,
so.
For sure. That makes sense. Yeah, so do I. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. And so late night shows have stopped production now, and soon weekly shows will. People, will miss these. And so do you think that this strike will kind of serve as a reminder of how important this art is to the general public?
I think so. I mean, especially late night you're right, it's the first thing that people feel. It's sort of a comforting, it's nice to know that that's always there. You have these personalities people love to tune into. I think, especially during the pandemic and after, people realized how much we rely on TV and film to, enjoy our stories, to be entertained, to think outside the box, and to just have something to talk about with your friends. And so that's only going to get worse and worse in terms of the content that's going away. And so first it's late night, and then it'll be your favorite broadcast shows like Abbott Elementary. That's going to go away. And then it'll be, seasons of shows like Barry and all those, HBO water cooler shows that people love to talk about. It's all going to go away if this strike has to go on. So we hope consumers at home think, you know what, we love these stories. We love the people who write them. We want them to be treated fairly. Mm-hmm. And that's really all we want. So.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so you're a captain of the Writers Guild, right? Yeah. And so I saw that 98% of the Writers Guild agreed to go on this strike, right? That's amazing in today's divisive world that 98% of people can agree on something. What are some tactics that you guys have employed to do that, to unify the Writers Guild?
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, to be completely honest, and this was our greatest turnout of all time. I mean, literally, of all the strikes we've ever done, 98% in terms of the numbers of voters and the numbers who voted yes. So it really was a milestone moment. And I think it's because they all feel it. I mean, everyone from the showrunner level to the staff writer to everyone in between, they know that rooms have changed and that the way that feature writers have changed. And so everyone's hurting. And either people are out of work or they're working, but they don't have the resources that they need. So it wasn't actually that hard to convince people. All we had to say is, do you like where things are at? Because if you don't vote yes on this strike authorization, it's only getting worse. This is the best it will ever be for you. And I think that scared people so much that they thought, no, this is it. We have to take a stand now. And we honestly might have even done it in 2020 if it wasn't for the pandemic. So a lot of those issues have just been building for 3 years. And so it's really a turning point.
That's really interesting. I think this is a huge point for labor in general, and not just the Writers Guild, in a time when corporations are seeing record profits and people are still hurting, like you're saying. So I really respect what you guys are doing, and I wish you the best of luck.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah,
thank you guys for covering it for Air Magazine. So
yeah,
of course.